In the tradition of Malcolm X, peace be unto you, I want to take a few minutes and talk about the Supreme Court's majority decision regarding Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization. The Supreme Court, as you know by now, overruled Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey, two landmark decisions which millions viewed as support for the personal right of women or a woman to decide what she wants to do with her pregnancy, whether to carry it to term or to abort it. Now, when you hear many of these feminist women giving their speeches on the street corner, you do not get the particulars of what this means. So let me just generally lay it out for you. The Supreme Court actually transferred the jurisdiction to legislate law regarding abortion to each state. So the Supreme Court did not say that abortion is illegal in all states, a felony, et cetera, if it occurs, but that the states will have the sole right to determine whether or not abortion is legal. Now, there are states that have already banned abortion, and there are states which are actually broadening the access to abortion by women. So that has to be made very clear. This is not a law that bans abortions nationally. And the Supreme Court had the power to do that, by the way. Number two, the Supreme Court did not ban contraceptives or other medicinal methods of terminating a pregnancy. The Supreme Court did not ban vasectomies for men. The Supreme Court did not ban a woman from having her tubes tied. The Supreme Court did not ban condoms. The Supreme Court did not ban any other kind of method used to prevent pregnancy. So let's be clear about that. So the Supreme Court did not ban a woman's right to decide whether or not to get pregnant. It banned or outlawed or repealed the federal government's involvement in facilitating abortion. Period. That's it. So women who want an abortion will have access to abortions. Now, looking at this from another perspective, since Roe v. Wade was made the law of the land back in 1972, black women between 15 and 45 who constitute maybe a very minuscule percent of the total American population have done 38% of the abortions. So that's analogous to how many African Americans are incarcerated, about 38% nationwide, versus being 12% of the population. A disproportionate number of African Americans are incarcerated. A disproportionate number of black women have had abortions done on them. And what both of those statistics suggest is that family structure has been significantly adversely impacted. And we can see that in the marriage rate among African Americans, which is in decline. The marriage rate at this point is headed to about 14% of the African American community by about 2050. That's virtually no marriages taking place. Now, at the same time, the fertility rate of the African American community is in decline from about 1.62 day and is projected to be as low or actually lower than one baby born per female between 15 and 45 by the year 2050. Now, if you don't see the implications of that, you just haven't been keeping up with the data. You haven't been listening to people trying to lay the facts on the table for you so that you can see. This is not an issue of personal rights. This is an issue of survival for African Americans in the United States. You cannot have a fertility rate rather, below 2.1 and expect to be on this planet for a generation or more in the future. It's just the math. If you don't grow, you have to go. And if some of you claim it takes a village, then there comes a point in time when the village has priority over engineered personal rights. And by engineered, I mean rights that are made lawful, but which are inconsistent with the flow of nature. And the flow of nature is to reproduce offspring. All life forms do it. All life forms do it, but we are the life form that tries to rationalize our lifestyles by engineering laws that make it appear as though they are good for the village or moral for the village. And the fact is, they're not. So my appeal to African American women is to step aside and let the white feminist Margaret Sanger group do what they want to do. They're going to do what they want to do. Some of them are just male haters, and they do not celebrate life. They do not celebrate life. Theirs is a culture of death. And it has been a culture of death since the first slaves were brought here from Africa, because white women were slaveholders too. And white women used to beat their slaves too. Read Frederick Douglass's autobiography. And he will describe situations in which white women were just as ruthless and merciless on black women as were white men. So we have a history of celebrating life because we understand how precious it really is, given what has been happening to us for 400 years in this territory called the Americas. So look at the data, look at the projections, and understand that if you support white feminists in this effort, and the politicians who are riding the wagon, these politicians are just trying to maintain the vote support that they need to get reelected. That's all it is for them. If the majority voice was pro-life, they'd all switch and be pro-life. That's what politicians do. They look at what is to their advantage politically, what side to take to win the next election. But we can't afford to be that way. We have to look at our situation and really evaluate it as best we can so that we understand we are on a death march. African Americans in the United States are on a death march in a culture of death. And if we don't exercise some self-determination at that very basic level to determine whether or not we will carry our babies, the fetuses that grow in our bodies, and I say our bodies because it takes a man and a woman, then we're just simply going to die. And there's no point in trying to talk about build your black business, build a political party. There's no point because there's not going to be any of us left. We're diminishing in numbers everywhere. And that's because of Roe v. Wade and reckless sisters and reckless brothers who make impulsive decisions instead of looking at the long term. What will be the consequences of getting pregnant and having this baby and having a family? So that's what I want to say. And if you have any comments, please leave them and I'll try to answer them. And I am Dr. Stephen Nur Ahmed. Peace be unto you.